Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Mike Triplett, neworleans.football. Good enough to be with us here. Mike, we appreciate you, man. How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing great. I want to start with the red zone conversation because Nick Underhill over at neworleans.football had the interaction with with Derek Carr about the red zone. That I know some said kind of got. I don't know that it was contentious, Mike, but I think Derek Carr's answer was a little silly. You can be evasive and not give an answer, but you don't typically say, "I'm being evasive and not giving you an answer." I'll just start with a reaction to what Derek Carr had to say when he was asked about the red zone struggles.
Well, there were a couple different things. One, that has been a common refrain from Derek Carr since he got here and when he was with the Raiders, is that he says, internal conversations about process and problems I've identified. He always says, "You guys know me. I'm not gonna tell you that stuff, but I appreciate you asking." It's a common line from him.
Okay.
But you can react to it however you want. But I was actually and wrote a story about the red zone earlier, and Nick was following up on it. But I was asking early, I mean, there's narrative, and you can say some narrative gets spun out of control, and there's obviously a lot more nuance to it. And we just saw in this last game, it wasn't all Derek Carr's fault. He threw a really bad interception. Taysom Hill lost. Ramczyk was spiked for holding twice. A.T. Perry stopped running a route. I mean, a lot of things go wrong. But it's now been 2 years of this. That was a storyline for Derek Carr before he came here, that he had the lowest completion percentage in the league inside the 10-yard line last year. And now he drastically has it again this year. He's 5 of 25 inside the 12-yard line. And so it's 2 years in a row. He ranks 36th out of 36 quarterbacks qualifying and all these stats and statistics. And I flat out asked about him. I said, it's a big sample size now. Does this keep you up at night? And, he said he doesn't really pay attention to that kind of stuff, the stats and stuff. Obviously, he said they're paying attention to the red zone issues. But, you can react however you want to that. I mean, some people do want to hear, I've got to be better. Those numbers are unacceptable to me. I think a lot of people want to hear the word unacceptable coming out of Dennis Allen's mouth a lot more. And I asked Dennis Allen about that this week, and he said, just because we can be poised in a press conference doesn't mean we're not, treating it as critically urgent, important, and unacceptable in the meeting rooms and when we're working on it in the offices. So I think people want to hear more. I think after these last two games, especially how badly the Minnesota and Atlanta games went, I think everybody wants to hear that they're calling all this stuff unacceptable. They don't want to hear positive spin, and I guess that's sort of the nature of the business.
Well, you got positive spin from Mickey Loomis as well on the radio show this week, and he continued to insist that they have the right people in the building. Mike, I'm going to ask you an opinion question. You're like, do you believe that? Do you believe they have the right people to fix this?
Well, I think it's somewhere in between. I don't think this team's good enough. I mean, I think the sample size is too big. For a lot of this season, I believe there was untapped potential, and there still is untapped potential. They have not lived up to their potential. But I think this team's got a lot of flaws. And the fact that the defense has become so mortal in recent weeks and let Atlanta just set the tone and run all over them, I think was really disturbing. That was the one thing you were supposed to be able to count on, and now the defense has been letting them down. And I do think we all want to roll our eyes at the, hey, we've got all these yards. When you don't have points, it doesn't mean anything. But since week 6, they are third in the NFL in yards per game. It's the Cowboys, the Lions, and the Saints, which is kind of stunning to me. But those are reasons to be like, hey, we have fixed some things. We have fixed the pass protection. We have started to move the ball better. That's not good enough, but if you're telling me that gives us hope that we can fix these other problems, then I'm willing to listen to that. But the product over the final 6 weeks has to be drastically better than the product we've seen at any point this season.
We'll come to the defense in a second, but I want to stay on the red zone thing for just a second because you did mention the A.T. Perry give it up on the route. Well, Mike, no Mike Thomas this week. We know that Olave and Shaheed both could be out as well. So realistically, What do they have there as far as pass catchers?
Well, hopefully Olave is part of it since he practiced the last 2 days, and we'll find out if you practice and then you get evaluated to see if you make it through the concussion protocol. And I almost feel like they seem optimistic that Olave will play, because I feel like you would have had to have brought another just warm body into the building if you were worried Olave wasn't going to play this week. There's only 6 receivers on the roster of the practice squad combined, and one of those is John Trey Kirkland, who hasn't played for them. So if it's not Olave, it's like A.T. Perry, Lynn Bowden, Marquez Callaway, Keith Kirkwood. Those guys will play no matter what, but you'd rather have them be complimenting Olave. And then I think it's possible Jimmy Graham gets activated for this game. Not that he'll play a big role, but he's kind of a pass catcher only, so he kind of helps to fill that receiver void, I would suspect. But that's slim pickings no matter what.
Mike Triplett, neworleans.football. Our chat's brought to you every week by Benny's Car Wash, bennyscarwash.com. Great holiday special. Check them out, bennyscarwash.com. All right, let's go to the defensive issues, Mike. This was supposed to be, it has been Dennis Allen's calling card. I feel like this has been a recurring theme when you and I talk every week, at least the past several weeks. Where is this defensive erosion coming from? What's the root of it?
Well, this last game, their run defense was lousy. And we saw hints of that, too, against Indianapolis, although Indianapolis, it was more a couple of big plays, and they were a little better. But there have not been a lot of teams this year that have really tested them with a traditional run game. We've talked about the quarterbacks getting leaky yardage against them, but they've just only faced a few teams that are like, no, we're going to run the ball with our running backs 30 times in this game, and that's what we want to do. So it was really disturbing to see how easily they got pushed around up front. I don't think they have a good run-stopping defensive front. It's 2 years in a row now. They tried to change that, and I don't think they fixed that. And they're going to get tested by another team that runs the ball well and often in Detroit this week. So I think that's the root of their biggest problem is, the defensive line hasn't been good enough against the run, whether it's quarterbacks or running backs.
And, I mean, just looking at whole, not only the line, Lattimore's out, Marcus May's injured, Cam Jordan, Pete Werner. I mean, all these guys didn't practice. They will see what it means by the time we get to Sunday, but I mean, realistically, Mike, who's going to be out there for this team against one of the best offenses in the NFL? And
this, unlike the last couple of years, this has not been the storyline this year. It hasn't been health, and now all of a sudden it's just an avalanche of health issues to really important players. I mean, the fact that they already signed Jonathan Abram to their active roster at safety makes me think they're not expecting to have Marcus May. I guess the jury's still out on both Pete Werner and Cam Jordan. It'd be nice to see them practice on Friday. I think those guys are going to play. We don't know the exact extent of their injuries, even though I think I've heard they're both going to try to fight through it. But, and we know Marshawn Lattimore's not going to play. So all of a sudden, that attrition was not something you were dealing with, and it's double whammy right now because this is without question the best offense they're going to face all year.
And it's odd to say with the Lions, but I mean, they are the third best passing offense, or the sixth best rushing offense, or the seventh best scoring offense. I mean, this is a great team that's going to challenge you. By the way, randomly, Mike, what the Jason Pierre-Paul thing? I mean, I get it that he's going home to Miami, but what happened there, and what are they not going to add another end to replace him?
Well, what's so strange about that is, I almost think it's bad luck. Like, Nick and Brooke on the show were more worked up about it than me, and it makes perfect sense. Once you decided that you were going to play him, you should have just gone ahead and signed him to the active roster, because they've had this guy on their team all year, Kyle Phillips, a veteran defensive end that they signed in August, and he's been using up a 53-man roster spot all year long, and they sort of were like, oh, we need a defensive end because Isaiah Foskey's hurt, and they decided to take Jason Pierre-Paul off the street and move him ahead of Kyle Phillips. It kind of made me wonder, well, why didn't you just sign Jason Pierre-Paul in August or September, October, November?
Yeah.
But the idea that it's like malpractice and mismanagement, that they didn't know that they had to sign Jason Pierre-Paul to the active roster, it's like, well, the entire league could have signed him the entire year. He wasn't with the team from February through through the end of November. So to think the league was going to line up to grab him, I don't know. I mean, I use like Jarvis Landry as an example. What if they signed Jarvis Landry this week to fill in at receiver? Do they need to be worried that someone else is going to want to take Jarvis Landry from them? I mean, there's some bad luck, but it would have been so easy to be like, hey, we know we're playing him this week. And Nick made the point. Everyone was probably going to be like, oh, I wonder if he has anything left in the tank. There were going to be more eyeballs on him than other players. So he should have just gone ahead and signed him to the 53.
A couple more for you. Again, on Twitter, at Mike Triplett. Get us stuff over at neworleans.football, neworleans.football. Of course, Nick, Brooke, Mike, they do great stuff over there. Our chats with Mike brought to you every week by Benny's Car Wash, bennyscarwash.com. Okay, specifically Sunday, Mike, let's talk big picture. What a win on Sunday versus a loss on Sunday, what does this mean, the result Sunday mean for the Saints?
I actually think a win means more than a loss. I think a win would be an eye-opener. I mean, they need a win like this. They need something to hang their hat on. We're already having the conversations about, what does Dennis Allen do to save his job? Is he on the hot seat? What is this team's identity that, Alvin Kamara said this team doesn't have an identity. Yeah. You beat a team like Detroit, it's the signature winning your season no matter how you do it, especially with all the injuries they're talking about. But if you lose, it's just like, well, yeah, of course they lost. They got killed by Minnesota. They got killed by Atlanta. They're going to get killed by a good team. But I don't think it destroys the season because, they still then the next week have Carolina at home, who's terrible, the Giants at home, who are terrible, Atlanta and Tampa Bay in the final 2 weeks of the season. And it's still, you go 9-8, you probably win the NFC South, no matter what happens in this game. So I think there's more to gain than to lose, but, it's been too long since their last win. So I also think, if they come out and look sloppy early, I think we're going to hear a lot of boos in the Superdome. Yeah. And I think that's a danger of having a good opponent come in at home. It's a hostile environment with fan base right now. 3
of the last 4 have been on the road, and 4 of the last 6 have been on the road, too. So the Saints finally get the friendly confines of the Dome, what could be the friendly confines of the Dome for 3 straight weeks. So maybe that's something that could help them turn it around. All right, Mike, how do they manage to get a win against Detroit on Sunday?
Detroit's defense isn't great. It's good, but it's not great. So all the stuff they've been pointing to, saying the last 6 or 7 weeks, they think their offense has gotten better. They think their offensive line has gotten better. They finally think they've started to run the ball the last couple weeks, and it's just their mistakes in the red zone that are killing them. Well, they got to prove that. They need to move the ball like they've been moving it. This defense won't stop them from moving the ball. This defense isn't that much better than Minnesota's defense or Atlanta's defense. They just have to finish the job by scoring points. How they're going to stop Detroit from scoring, how they're going to stop Detroit from running the ball and running out the clock on them if Detroit gets a lead, I think that's a much tougher task.
Yeah. He is Mike Triplett, neworleans.football. Chats every week brought to you by Benny's Car Wash, bennyscarwash.com. Mike, we appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.